All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Bottom Line Podcast, where we say what we mean and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line. Today's guest is Miss Dr. Alexia Maria Konko. She is a doctor of psychology, and she uses an overall wellness approach to healing. She is with her own business, Soul Center, out in New Jersey. So you can reach her at you can check her out at soulcenternj.com. And just a little bit of background, why I reached out to Dr. Konko, but I'll call you Alexia. Is that all right?
Of course.
All right. I'll call you Alexia.
Look
The reason,
at
yeah, the reason I reached out to Alexia is because, so I looked her up on Facebook. I saw her content. I saw she put out Soul Center, and she's all about this wellness approach. And what's going on right now with COVID and, us not getting that, we're not getting the message from the mass media how we can, take a wellness approach to our immune system and to our mental health. But we're hearing a lot of what's going on in terms of, marriages and divorces and suicide rates and, the immune system and who can be, the vulnerable population. And it's like so overwhelming. So her wellness approach is, I think, a conversation that we need to bring to the forefront, right? And it should probably be a conversation that we have more often. Alexia also studied at psychology at Rutgers Graduate School. So if you know anything about Rutgers Graduate School, super intense, right? They don't let anybody they don't let just anybody in there. You got to be about your business, right? So
yeah,
she's,
for sure.
yeah, so she studied psychology and she studied PsyD. We'll get into that. And and she went to the Rutgers, a graduate school of applied and professional psychology, right? So a lot of people out there will, say that they study psychology, but they're not applying it. And what you're doing is significant because you're applying it from a wholeness, a wellness standpoint, right? So that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. As far as the graduate school too, there was a selective number of people admitted just because of the field itself and going that route. So I think maybe 18 or so people were admitted that year out of lots more that applied.
Yeah, so hats off to you. You crushed it to get in there. I'm pretty sure you did.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, for sure. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on, especially what we're going through with COVID. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be a guest on the show.
Absolutely, I'm honored.
Yeah, I really want to take time to figure out and to ask you how you have been directly impacted by COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, at first I would say it was definitely a big switch, I think the hardest part for me was not being able to connect with people. Yeah, that level of connection was no longer there when we were locked down.
Right.
So being away from even close family members that were, sort of in that vulnerable population.
Yeah.
Friends, not being able to see them in the very beginning when rates were so super high, and that was that was tough, and that can be very tough on people mentally.
Right.
So I think as the cases came down and as people started to see each other in a socially distant manner again, you can just, that weight is kind of lifted. You can connect with others again. And the thing about not connecting with others is that sort of isolation can sort of enhance depression, right?
Yeah.
So it can sort of enhance those feelings of depression. And then when you connect again, you're like, that joy is there again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So coming back to, just connection with others, being part of, overall health.
Yeah.
Got to make sure we're doing that. Keep in touch. If you can't see people in person, if you're not at that point,
right,
connect over FaceTime, connect over Zoom. And I even said, to just you and other people that I've had connections with, that it's just been so nice because that was so lacking in the beginning.
Yeah.
That these Zoom calls and these, just seeing people's faces and connecting again is really,
oh, forget it.
really
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
It's crazy because I'm all about the connection. I'm all about that intuitive connection, right?
Yeah.
Not so much the so like networking events, for instance. I used to go to a lot of networking events, and it's fun to go to a networking event and not talk about what you do because people try to figure out what you do. So I kind of like reverse engineer that whole process. So it's like, well, what do you do? It's like, I talk more about who I am, right?
Yeah.
And like what I like to do, like sports and music, and I ask those kinds of stupid questions, right? And
Or as a person.
yeah, as a person. So not being able to go to like networking events, not being able to go to meetups, not being able to, hang out with family. The older generation on my side, they're just kind of like leave me alone.
Right.
Come over, yeah, come over for an hour. We can have dinner, but then leave me alone after that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think what you're saying is key about being able to connect on video chat, like
Right.
using Zoom and so on. Um, and the mental health, oh man, like it's crazy because you don't realize it until you're like limited in
Yeah.
quarantine, right? And you're like, well, I've done everything. I've read all the books, right? I've watched a bunch of videos. I've talked to my friends. I want to go out and interact, right?
Yeah. That's
Okay.
what it was. That's what it showed us, that we need to connect with one another, and that we missed that. What
Yeah.
we missed was not the material things.
Yeah.
It wasn't the fancy stuff. We missed connecting with our loved ones. I think that was an overarching struggle for
Yeah.
myself and others during the pandemic.
Yeah. And it's still going on now, right? And
Yeah.
depending what state you're in, I'm guessing, so you're out in Jersey, depending on what most state people are in, their ability to go out and do like outdoor activities with like maybe their kids or like the seniors, the grandparents, that's limited also, right?
Yeah.
So what have people, how have, when you're talking to people, when you've been talking to people during COVID and you introduced the idea of wellness, right? And it's like it's going against the current narrative, first of all, right? It really is. Everything is like so medicinal right now. It's like vaccine centered. It's everything is centered around medicine. So how do people respond to you and your approach to with the wellness approach?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's different.
Yeah.
I think that it's new. It's a new, people. This may have been, a new concept, even you hearing it.
Right.
So I think it's new to people. But I think once they start trying it, I think that's how they get more on board with it. But
Yeah.
I do think that it wouldn't be for somebody who, doesn't have that, natural, like they don't want a natural approach to healing, or they feel more aligned with, medication, or they feel more aligned with, other things that they do for themselves for their well-being. So I think it takes some getting used to for those people. But otherwise, I think that if you have that, you're open to it.
Right.
I think that it goes really good, right? Because you don't have to do anything too big.
Right.
It's really back to the basics. It's really getting enough water. It's really your nutrition, right? So that's eating your healthy foods, nutrient dense foods.
Right.
Because there's that gut mood connection. So I try to always explain that.
Right.
Yeah, meeting with my clients.
Yeah.
And then it's really lifestyle changes. So again, that takes time to do over time, but it's from going from sitting on the couch and watching TV,
Right.
to like taking daily walks and increasing your exercise and setting small attainable goals each week, for your health and your life, and living a life that you value, right? So living in line with your values. I try to incorporate yoga and meditation, mindfulness.
Nice.
So it's a whole person, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm open to it, right? I like it. I'm not into the yoga part though. You got to give me a minute on
Right.
that one. I haven't
Right.
gotten there yet. I'm still working on it.
For sure.
Yeah, but I'm open to the idea of like your body can heal itself.
Yes.
I'm open to the idea and to the concept that if you can do a gut check, most of your health can be checked from your gut, right? I think inflammatory, and what's crazy is like the space that you're in is centered around the mind, psychology, the way people think, the conditioning, how we program ourselves pretty much, and then how social media programs us, and then also how mass media programs us, right? So there's a lot of misinformation out there. Sometimes you can be overwhelmed with all this, the data with the death toll and how.
Oh yeah. Well, that is a huge. I'm glad you brought that up. That's sort of in psychology,
Yeah.
you know, if I had a client coming in and doing what the mass media does, we would, say that that's sort of like, a negative thinking style that stems from like depression.
Right.
You're heavily focused on the negative right there. Everything you see on the news and is negative.
Yeah.
I really can't think of one positive thing I've seen on the news, and that's why I really don't watch too much news. I really just stay updated
Right.
online, and on ways that I can control what I see,
Yep.
because that's all about your mindset. So if we're focusing on the death toll,
Right.
well, let's flip that around and let's focus on who's recovered, and how we can support our own health and well-being, and
Yeah.
make our immune systems healthy to fight off viruses in general, not
Right.
naming any names.
Yeah, I love it. So I gotta, I'm curious, like, when it comes to, like I said, I don't watch the news that much either, but it's out there and you'll see a lot of it on social media.
Hmm.
So a little bit about, I guess, how you, how you figured out that psychology was going to be your vehicle, right? I'm kind of curious to figure that out because there's so many different ways. It can be fitness, right? But I'm a strong believer that everything starts in the mind,
Yeah.
right? I think the mind is like the powerhouse. It controls everything, right? Not the brain, the mind. It's like the mind first, then the brain, right? So conscious thought versus like subconscious behavior and subconscious thought, right? That's where I'm at. So soul center is pretty much based, like your whole idea is this whole wellness approach. There are things that we can do from that we have control of within
Yeah.
our bodies, within the way that we think, so that we can create the reality we want for ourselves, whether it be within our health or our mindset, right?
Yeah,
So I'm
absolutely.
curious, like, what got you into this space? What got you into psychology, and more specifically, the wellness side of it?
Yeah, so the wellness side of it came second, right? And it's definitely something that came after. So I'll get there. So backtracking,
Yeah.
what attracted me to psychology? You know, that stems back because, I remember always being interested in sort of why people behaved the way that they did, even as
Right.
a child, as a young
Right.
child.
Yeah.
I wanted to know the why, right? And I was very observant. So, then I remember in high school just being able to select, an elective or so, and
Okay.
psychology happened to be one of them at the time that I was in high school. So I chose it, and we kind of went through things like dream journals and
Nice.
all of that, and the subconscious, and I was super duper interested.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like when I got to college, I think I went in undecided.
Okay.
Um, Not really thinking too much into it. The first semester, they just place you in Rutgers. They just place you into a batch of classes. You don't decide,
Okay.
unless I think you have a pre-decided major. So I was placed into a gen psych course, just so happened, and
Okay.
I was really, really attracted. I really loved it. I was very interested. I wanted to keep going. It was the only class I was interested in. I
Nice.
had literature, I had a math class, I
Right.
had psychology,
Okay.
and that's where my interest was. And I went a couple times back and forth with different majors, but I kept wanting to pursue psychology, and I didn't want to leave that behind. And I think a lot of the times when somebody says they want to study psychology or even sociology or even
Right.
philosophy, people will try to talk it down and kind of
Mhm.
say, well, what are you going to do with that major?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was there, but it was a passion and it was an interest so strong that I couldn't ignore it.
Right. I love that.
So I kept pursuing.
Yeah, I love that. I can relate to that a little bit. When I was in college, I think first when I was studying for my bachelor's degree, I was super undecided too, and I went in for something quick, right?
Right.
I was like, just give me liberal arts, I'll bang that out, right? There's no math, right? So I went in for
Right.
liberal arts. I was able to like just run around and study whatever I wanted. But then part of it was, like you said, psychology. I took an abnormal psych class, and I was like, this is it,
Yeah.
this is where it is. Like, I
It's
couldn't put the
very
books
interesting.
down. I was reading everything, like the pioneers of psychology. I was like infatuated with the philosophy behind it. Mind
Yeah.
blown. I was like reading constantly, and I was smoking a lot back then. So I was a heavy pothead, and I loved to smoke because it got me into my zone, right? It got me into
Mhm.
flow, what we call flow now, right?
Yeah.
but I would pick up a psychology book and I would just be like, wow, this is like, and I became a philosopher in my own head, right?
Yeah.
So abnormal psych really stood out to me. And then I got introduced to the DSM-4,
Uh-huh.
and then I started self-diagnosing. I was like, yep, that's me all day. And then I had to like,
Yes.
because you got to rule out, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's where it gets
Different
tricky. It's like,
diagnosis.
oh, we got to rule out. Wait, you never told me I got to rule out. And then diagnoses they start being like similar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
They did.
you can't really figure out like what's what, right? And
Right.
then I started to realize the hustle behind it. This is what turned me off about it.
Mhm.
Was in abnormal psych, the professor I had her own practice, and
Mhm.
she raised the point that she was upset that she had to she had to it showed like it was bad. They didn't have Yelp back then, but misdiagnosis was a thing. They would diagnose somebody and then they would do it for billing,
Yep.
and they would prescribe meds. And her
Yep.
whole thing was back then wholeness wasn't a thing either. You're talking I got my degree in '09, so you're talking '06, '07 maybe.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, so like wellness wasn't a
Medical model, you know.
yeah. So I'm thinking she was so upset about the fact that she had to keep diagnosing over and over. And she had these like formulas. She said, Tai Chi. She said people can do like Reiki. This
Mhm.
was the things that she was into, like yoga.
Even
Yeah,
back then, wow.
she was
That's
super
more
into that,
natural.
right? So that's what kind of turned me off. And the fact that you have to go get your doctorate and you have to be like full time 8 years into it, I was like,
Mhm.
nah, I can't do it. But I,
Yep.
I I was super attracted into it. So
Wow.
what about you and about Soul Center and what attracted you to it was you trying to figure out, what makes people tick, it sounds like, right? Why they behave the way they behave.
It was, well, with psychology, it was me getting into, it's me wondering why people behave the way they behave and
Yeah.
trying to understand people better and
Yeah.
why they behave the way they did, where that came from. That's what
Okay.
brought me to psychology. What brought me more into the wellness
Yeah. Talk to me about
sector,
that. Yeah.
yeah, recently was, with psychology, I worked in schools primarily with
Okay.
psychology as a school
Right.
psychologist. And like I've had instances where I felt I couldn't fully help because of, just the system that you're in and just systemic barriers. And, psychology in the schools, it's kind of similar, right? Like there's a lot of testing that goes on.
Yep.
Kids that have mental health problems are then brought in to the special education system. So there's a lot of complications. There's a lot of labeling. There's a lot of bias that children may experience, and so it was very difficult to really just work with my clients and really be able to carve out the time for that. Private practice psychology, I do that still. So that's a way I can be with clients, be one-on-one,
Right.
work with them on their anxiety, depression. But yeah, you do have to make a diagnosis. The thing with wellness that is so different is that, and what I really think my clients needed that, they weren't getting with just the psychology, just the mindset switches, because I could meet with you, right, once a week. We could do positive thinking. We could do cognitive behavioral therapy, which is amazing for your mindset.
Yep.
But then if you go home 3 out of the 4 nights a week eating Burger King, your mood, right, is still
Right.
going to be,
Yeah. Let's
it's
talk. Let's
still
talk.
going to
You're
be,
getting into it. You're getting into it. You're sizzling right now. You're sizzling. And since you're sizzling, we're gonna get cooking, right? So let's get into it. Yeah, because you're really like I don't know if people can appreciate what you're doing here, but you touched on like maybe two key things, right? You touched on depression and you touched on the anxiety, and I think those are two factors that COVID triggers in a lot of people. And
Mhm.
because of the anxiety, what we do, I know me, I got this problem and I'm working on it. Right? Is I go back to the gym as an outlet because
Yeah,
I'm thinking positively. But when I don't have time to go to the gym because I'm overwhelmed, I'll stress eat. So
right,
I'll snack more, and
right.
then I'll make up for it at the gym, right? But there's a
Mm,
level of anxiety that's there that I'm dealing with,
yeah,
and is triggered by my inability to control what's happening around me.
yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that, right? About how you've seen that in your patients and some like maybe some recommendations or some easy steps that people can implement to like reduce that anxiety right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, these are the things that happen. These are the things that we do, right? We will get stressed, and especially at a time like this, it is so stressful, and everybody's experiencing it differently. We might binge eat like you are going through. We might, you know, binge drink. We might, do other destructive behaviors, impulsive, risky behaviors. Who knows what it is that might be the thing that you're going towards. But when we don't have the positive coping mechanisms, you're going to go to a negative one, you know, or to a less desirable one. You know, we don't want to label it as too negative, but you're experiencing something that you may feel that you regret later or guilty about later, you know, with any of the things I just named. You know, is it the
Right.
eating? Is it, you know, sexually promiscuous behavior? Who knows
Right.
how you're coping?
Right.
So, you know, what I would say is just, I'll give you a couple of positive coping strategies for anybody experiencing something like this that you can try first before, you know, binging or before doing something destructive, because we want you to have a little bit of a toolkit
Right.
to pull from to just try to make yourself feel better. The first thing, and it's not for everybody, but I would suggest just like deep, if not meditating, deep breathing.
Yeah.
You know, just even if it's breathing awareness, becoming aware of your breath for a couple of minutes. And even if you don't like complete silence at first, if you're new to it, you can play something in the background, like soft music or whatever you prefer, but just a couple of minutes of slowing down. And focusing on here and now, right? Because anxiety usually comes from being worried about the future, right? And depression, we're thinking about the past 9 times out of 10. So with meditating, we're here and now, we're present.
Right.
Present right here and now, me and you, everything's great.
Right.
So we got to focus on the present. That's the meditation. That's the mindfulness. That's one.
Right.
Okay. The second is, I would say, watch your food intake, right? So eat a healthy diet.
Right.
Fruits and vegetables, lean protein, okay, whole grains, whole foods, nutrient dense foods.
Examples. Give me some examples.
Well, just your basics, you know, lean chicken, fish.
Right.
Any fruits and veggies, whole wheat.
Yeah.
Whole wheat bread, oats.
Right. So put the burgers down. Put the burgers down, right? I'm a big burger guy. So
you could do it. Yeah, burgers are okay.
Okay.
You just wanna, you know, I think it's really it's the fast foods, it's the soda. Right. You know, I have a client drinking, eating cookies and milk for breakfast. So
that's great.
You want to just notice how you feel, because then you know, how do you feel the rest of the day after that? Did you feel motivated? Did you feel like you wanted to stay on the couch all day? So just, if anything, it's not even about specific foods. I would say it's about watching how you feel after you eat the foods, because because if I slip up and I eat garbage food, I don't feel well after, and I notice it.
Right.
So just watch how you feel after eating certain foods. Now, something to ripple off that is watch your environment. Watch how you are around certain people. Watch your work. Watch how you feel at your work. Watch your news intake. Okay. And then another thing is, don't stay too stagnant. Don't sit too much. Right. So move your body.
Kinetic energy.
What?
Kinetic energy. Create some some energy.
When you're anxious, definitely move around. If you're depressed, definitely move around. It doesn't have to be a full, you know, work gym session with weightlifting, but you can just take a 1 hour walk or even less. Just move around. Too much sitting, too much TV, you know, that creates just that energy that you're not balanced enough. Because over here is sitting and watching TV all day. Over here is running around being a workaholic. So we need balance.
You need balance. And find love, right? Like I tell people, find love, like find ways to love yourself, man. Like, you know, doing certain, like self-care, self-love is huge right now, right? Because a lot of people, it's true. Like a lot of people are getting out of relationships, you know, you start to hear it all over the place, right? And I'll just use like Kanye and Kim, for example. It's like, it's all over social media. You hear them like, you know, they're probably going to break up. And then you hear that and you're like, well, they're regular people, you know, they're celebrities, but it's because of like, so like part of it too, I think is, and this is what I tell people. I like what you said about how you feel after you eat something. And I usually tell people through personal development, I have some people that I work with through personal development, and I say, how do you feel when you have that thought? How does that, what emotion does that thought trigger for you?
Yeah.
Right? Identify with that emotion and then see how it makes you feel, what it looks like to live within that emotion. If it excites you, then great, pursue it, right? If it excites you, but it makes you nervous, it gives you a little bit of anxiety, like similar to getting on a roller coaster, there might be a fear there that you're afraid of pursuing, but it's
Right.
probably going to have a favorable outcome. So go ahead and pursue that. But if you
Sure.
have something like that triggers, fear, doubt, introduces self-sabotaging behavior, you want to get familiar with it. You want to identify it. You want to sit with it for a minute, and then you want to, you want to reduce it and eventually eliminate it.
Yeah.
So I like what you're saying about, how do you feel after you eat something? Because they're in the feeling, they're
Yeah.
in the emotion, and they
Yeah.
get to say,
Food is emotion.
yeah, they get to say whether or not it's a good feeling or a bad feeling. But what's
Yeah.
interesting about what you're saying though is like you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? So how do
100.
you empower people? Like how do you empower people to take action
Mhm.
towards making the right decision?
That's a really tough question. It's very hard when clients aren't, motivated to do it themselves. I'll do a lot of positive self-talk with them, so the mindset switching. So if they're saying, "I can't do this," I don't have the capabilities to stop these negative thoughts. I will be there, kind of self-love
Yeah.
in the meantime until they get there. And you can do this. You are in charge of your own life. You're in charge. You have control over, like we talked about,
Yeah.
you have control over these choices. You have control over what you eat. You have control over putting vitamins in your body. You have control over, choosing to take an hour walk as opposed to sitting and watching TV. So the small attainable goals and then seeing themselves succeed will bring the confidence. And in the meantime, doing the positive self-talk with them so that they can eventually sink in with it and say, hey, I am in control of my life. I can do this. I can make changes.
Right. I love that. That's so powerful because it's empowering. And at the end of the day, there's only so much hand holding you can do, right?
Yes,
So
they do
it's,
need to take the reins.
yeah. And it's also like creating a habit, right? You get into the habit of adopting a more positive mindset. Let me ask you this, right? From a holistic approach, how do you feel about like CBD oils and like other oils that people can use to maybe reduce stress, reduce inflammation? A lot of it does come from the gut, and a lot of it comes from like their mindset.
Mhm.
What do you advise? Like, what is your suggestion when it comes to that, like topical treatments and such?
I think it depends on the person. I do try to suggest or incorporate essential oils
Okay.
with clients because they can be really good for either calming on the one end, like the lavender and the eucalyptus
Right.
oils.
Right.
And then on the other end of it, there's invigorating oils like lemon, grapefruit, wild orange. So they can really have an effect on your mood. The
Yeah.
only thing I would say with them is to watch where you're getting them from.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're getting them from companies that share how they get their oils, and that they're 100% pure and natural. Um, so I
Yeah.
would definitely, yeah, if it helps you,
Right.
100%. I've had experience with using the oils, and they definitely can help for anxiety, sleep issues,
Right.
waking you up in the morning. There's some for nausea, whatever you might be experiencing. There are, a lot of feedback from people that it is working for them. So I wouldn't say no, but I would say just, again, watch your reaction to it. So if you are taking the CBD oil and you're noticing that you are either feeling good or feeling bad, then you need to act off of that because it's going to affect everybody differently.
Yeah.
Just the food.
Right. I love it. I think that's great. Because I go back and forth with that, but it's something that I'm thinking about, and I see a lot of people are using like topical treatments and like oils and such. I'm like, okay, cool. If that works for you, I'm all about it. For me, I think I love incense. I love incense. Like I like to burn incense. It's
Well,
something.
that's the oils to diffuse. It's very similar.
Right, right. I love that. So I'll do that sometimes too. Um, you're super smart. You're really brilliant, and it's almost intimidating, right?
Oh,
So,
thank you.
well, for somebody who's not open to the wellness approach, you make it seem pretty practical. So it's kind of scary for somebody to say, "Well, it can't be this simple," because if it's that simple, how come I haven't been doing it? You know what I mean? So it's a little intimidating. I'll be honest. And you don't seem like you're pushing it on anybody, right? It just seems like it might be a good fit for you. It might not be. I'm here if it is, and I'll help you through it. That seems
Yeah,
to be your approach.
it
So
is my approach, and that's always been my approach. Even with psychology, even when I've had, patients that, sort of had to come, I'm never forced. And then, you come around to it, or once, that understanding has been built or trust has been built, we go from there.
right, trust, that's important. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. How'd you grow up? Like, what got you into this way of thinking? You seem to be attracted to how or why people do what they do, right? So human behavior. Were you always like that as a kid?
Yes, I was always like that as a kid. That's a great question. I've actually never been asked it. As a kid, I was super interested, I would say, in the kids that were acting out.
Right, right.
I was quiet on the quieter end, or on the reserved end. I was a listener. I was a very smart child,
Right.
observant. So I would say that I had an attraction towards, or put attention towards, kids who are acting out and wondered why.
Right.
Maybe befriended them, maybe got close with them, or tried to help. I was always a helper. I remember in fourth grade, there was a student that came from Mexico into the class, and the teacher asked, who wants to kind of have her as a desk partner, which would be who wants to sit next to,
Right.
And I remember kind of everybody just being silent, because you're in fourth grade, and I remember just raising my hand and saying I wanted her next to me, and I helped her learn English, and
Wow.
yeah, like it was just natural for me to want to help. So if I saw somebody struggling, or in that way having a hard time, it was natural for me to just be there.
Nice. Nice. Wow, that's impressive. And so how old? I wasn't like that as a kid. I'd be like, keep them away from me. You know what I mean?
And most kids were, but I just
Yeah.
think I just had that, and I just wanted to, and it felt good.
Yeah.
And then it just lasted.
Right.
It was always a passion. It was always a purpose.
Love it. Love it. I think that's amazing because you somehow you grew into that and it brought you to your current practice, right? So when did you, how old you, because, as a kid, first of all, me, I was the kind of kid, I liked science. I was the kind of kid that I was smart, but I was afraid to show how smart I was because it wasn't cool to be a nerd back then.
No.
Nerds would get beat up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would stand up for the nerds, but I was smart, but at the same time, I kind of didn't want anybody to know it.
Kind of hit it.
You know what I mean? So I'm wondering, how old were you when you realized I like to be smart, I like to learn, and I like to be in pursuit of more knowledge?
Oh, I probably fifth grade.
Wow. Early, yeah.
I would say fifth grade, yeah, as young as that, because there was a program at my school, and it was gifted and talented, and
TAG, yeah, we had TAG at my school.
So that was it, and I loved it because it was a lot of like reading.
Right.
Big reader. It was a lot of creative writing. Loved that. I'm actually working on a book right now. I didn't share that with you yet.
Nice.
But so yeah, I knew very young. I wasn't afraid of it. In high school, I think it got more blurry because I was a cheerleader.
Yeah.
So it was like, cheerleading and kind of the popular people. And then on the other hand, I was in AP courses. So it was hard to really fit into either group. And it was kind of just like, I kind of made friends with my own group that were kind of separate from that. But yeah, it's hard to really have that nerd.
Right.
I was fine with it.
Yeah. Were the cheerleaders like trying to like embarrass the nerds at all, or like making fun of them or picking on them at all?
I think to an extent, I think it wasn't too bad.
Right.
But yeah, you definitely the nerd jokes are there.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't as cool. Today is like we're living during the time where it's like Revenge of the Nerds. You hear that all over the place, right? Yeah. So you got to be a little nerdy now. I mean, if you don't,
I love it.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't have anything against it. I don't. So getting into business. Okay, so you sound like you were in pursuit of more knowledge. You knew that you wanted to pursue psychology, and you weren't afraid of the academic side of it. You love learning, right?
No, I loved it.
And then you graduated. You got into the school. You graduated, and you didn't go work for a company. It sounds to me like you just said, you know what? Because wellness is not that popular, and it's not like there's not a lot of money in wellness. It's for a selected few. You know what I
It's
mean?
very new.
Yeah. So, what motivated you to start your own business? Like, that's super risky, especially during what's going on right now.
Hmm. Absolutely. Well, what's going on right now actually jolted me into thinking about doing the business. People, were struggling. I was hearing stories that people were going through hard times, um, and I wanted to help. And I have all this knowledge. I went through, my own kind of journey with, being mentally healthy, learning what worked for me with yoga, meditation, vitamin regimen, eating healthy, mindset, all of it. So I said, why not build a business on what I know works? I've seen other people go through their journeys doing similar things.
Right.
This approach is the new thing. And, going through psychology jobs, I worked in a hospital at one point on one of my practicums, which is like sort of like an internship site.
Yeah.
I worked at Robert Wood Johnson in New Brunswick, and the medical doctors,
Yeah.
were looking for psychology interns to work with them on grand rounds on the hospital floors because they were not finding solutions to some of the medical problems that their patients were experiencing.
How about that? That's interesting. Yeah.
So the world of integrated health,
Yeah.
I think, is really going to be where psychology and medicine go, because I think that they need to be integrated. If medical doctors are still having questions and they're coming to psychologists because they can't figure it out, the mind and body are one. The mind and body do work together. We need to consult each other and take a whole mind-body approach. And I think that the risk is worth it, because I think this is what needs to be done, right?
Yep.
We need a full workup, full mind and body, to really figure out what's going on with us, figure out healing.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah. I think what's interesting too about what you said, and look, hats off to you, right, Alexia, because you worked in the school system and you saw how you were ineffective based on what you studied and what you know and what you can stand behind, right? So it's like you tried to work at certain places and you still weren't able to, I think, impact change on the level that you wanted to, right? I think,
Right.
yeah.
I think what they wanted, and I think it was effective in the sense that I had, small victories in, getting kids to participate in, mainstream education and those kinds of things. But yes, the changes that I wanted to see, such as mindset shifts with teachers, mindset shifts with principals,
Right.
that's still going to take a while. So correct.
Yeah. I think that's amazing that you were able to do that and put yourself out there like that. It's scary. I used to work with the developmentally challenged and, ISPs and IEPs and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like the timelines aren't realistic. You know what I mean?
Right. What did you do?
Oh, so I was a service provider. So like I worked with Medicaid to make sure that the rehab centers and the vocab centers were following guidelines and they were within compliance, right? And we were trying to make sure that the kids were hitting their goals. So like the autistic or like CP kids or like high functioning MR kids, right? We had to make sure that they were living up to that. The schools were helping them hit the goals on their IEPs and their ISPs.
Yeah. And honestly, it's very tough for them to meet those goals.
It's because the timelines are not realistic.
No.
You know what I mean? So it's all about billing at the end of the day. And it's like, what do you do when these kids are still, they're still underserviced and they're still in need? So
exactly, they are underserviced, and you know what it is too. It's having a classroom full of 25 kids, each with different needs, and how are you meeting all those goals? Because it's the way that the schools are set up and the way that the model is. It's very realistic for anybody to achieve, the gains that we need them to.
Yeah, it's scary and it's frustrating because at the end of the day, it's like, how much does this paycheck mean to you? Because you're dealing with people's lives now. You know what I mean? And they're counting on you and they're depending on you and they actually like you. So I had to get out of that.
We don't want to go through the motions. And I loved every child that I've worked with in every family, but I couldn't, just keep doing robotic things. I had to make things on a real level, like you said. And that's why my path changed.
Yeah, hats off to you. Like, I think more people should be like going after where they think they can actually impact change, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about how frustrating and the emotions behind it. There's a component, or there's a part of what you do where emotional intelligence is key, right? To be like, let's go back to the anxiety and the depression and how you feel about, how you feel after you eaten the junk food, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
there's a level of emotional intelligence there. Let's break that down for me. How do people deal or become more, how do they control the emotions? How do they identify those emotions? Talk to me about EQ a little bit.
Absolutely. Right. So, emotional intelligence, that's being aware of our emotions. In order to control our emotions, which is a very challenging thing, we need to be aware of our emotions, right? That might include being aware of your physical body.
Right.
And that's why, I always do recommend the meditation and the mindfulness. So, that with mindfulness and meditation, I'll sometimes do a body scan, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of going through each part of the body. When there's anxiety, physical symptoms can come, right? So
Right.
we've got heart palpitations, sweaty palms, you might be getting hot, you might have trouble breathing. So that awareness, that's part of the awareness of the feeling that's going on, right?
Yep.
Noticing your physical body. And then sort of being able to name it. So what I would do in a therapy session at the very beginning
Yep.
with somebody who might lack emotional intelligence is I will show a feelings wheel.
Feelings wheel. Okay.
Yeah. So that can just kind of be a broad range. We'll start with anger, fear, sadness, disgust, or shame, and then we'll go into, kind of the little ends that branch off of each one. Are we depressed? Are we frustrated?
Right.
What's behind the anger? So we'll naming your emotions, right? And being able to pinpoint, well, my heart's palpitating.
Right.
Now let me think about, what's behind that. And, I'm thinking it's anxiety.
Right. Love it.
Right. Okay. And then the third portion of that is, being emotionally intelligent is expressing ourselves in a healthy way. So if I'm able to, express myself healthy, well, first we would probably calm ourselves down and use a coping skill that we talked about earlier.
Right.
The deep breathing, something to calm ourselves down. Then, we want to express it.
Yep.
We want to express our feelings. So I'm feeling X because Y, I need or want you to blank.
So don't internalize, express it, share it.
Keep it in.
Yeah.
But let it out when ready.
Nice.
Too.
Yeah.
Because, it could be that you or I or, a client has been quiet.
Yep.
We've been quiet. We've been holding it in, holding it all in here.
Suppressing.
Tight chest. Yeah, we're suppressing. We're holding it maybe in our stomach.
Right.
Wherever you might be having pain or a sensation, that might be where you're keeping or stuffing your feelings.
Yeah.
So, and then after a while, it might be a blow up of rage or anger. Where did that come from? Well, it came from it all sitting, in your chest, in your stomach.
Yep.
You want to express it healthy when you can and communicate your feelings.
Yeah, it can cause cancer. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, all that suppression can cause like those kind of like ailments, like cancer, high blood pressure, tumors,
anything.
It can manifest itself physically.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
manifests physically in the body.
Yeah.
If we aren't emotionally aware, if we don't use coping skills and self-care,
right,
and express yourself when needed and in a healthy manner, because even if you do have that rage blow up with somebody, how do you feel after?
Right.
It's like eating that Burger King. It's like that guilt.
Yeah. It goes right back to that. How do you feel after the fact? Yeah.
How do you feel? Yeah.
Yeah, you're pretty consistent with that. Like you said, wholeness or wellness, I think you got to be whole, right?
Yeah.
Like, you got to be whole. So I think there's a part
whole
of
you. Whole you.
I think wholeness is a part of it that we kind of get out of, or when we're not familiar with our emotions. We're not whole. There's a part of us that's missing that we need to identify with so that we can be whole again, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes people go into the wrong relationships. They go looking for, they repeat the pattern. They get the same person, but it's a different person, and they're trying to be whole. And it's because they don't know how they feel, right? And they're hoping that person can meet a need for them. So they become dependent, right, on that person. So it's like what you're saying is key, because you're aware of your feelings, you express your feelings, and after you express your feelings, you're okay with it. But then you think about how you feel after you express those feelings. So that's key. It's wholeness, and it's like emotional wellness and intelligence leads to wholeness, right?
Yeah, and it's like, how did that sit with you? You know, with everything you do, how did that sit with you?
Yeah.
How did that sit with you? And if you are experiencing the wrong relationships or things like that, I will say, you know, one thing that you should ask yourself is, you know, is this a past attachment that's popping up again?
Yeah.
You know, how do I need to modify? Because
there's a pattern.
Yeah, there's a pattern, and you can really get caught up in that. You could really get caught up in the wrong relationships if you don't notice, you know, your past hurts popping up, or even if you are in the right relationship, but you notice yourself maybe picking fights. You might want to say, is this relationship, or is this a past hurt that's popping up that I need to reflect on and then process and push past? Because you also could be pushing past the pattern, but you know, old hurts are still popping up. So make sure you can recognize whether is this the here and now, or is this a past hurt?
You're sizzling. You're hot. You're on fire. You're so on fire, because it's so true. It ties right back to those feelings, and it comes from like childhood trauma. You realize something happened to you when you were like 5, and you're like, oh,
exactly.
Carrying it into like this, and it builds more anxiety, right? And all you've been doing is suppressing it for years, right? I love that.
Let it out.
Yeah, let it out. Just let it out. So when we were, I guess back in 07, 06, what you were doing, the wellness side of it wasn't as popular. Where do you see this game? Where do you see wellness in your industry 5 years from now, 3 to 5 years from now?
Yeah, so more and more people right now are getting introduced to mental health and therapy, which is great. I think that wellness opens that portal up even further, right? So I have, you know, patients coming saying they were skeptics of therapy, but, you know, now they're giving it a chance. I think that wellness will even be able to encompass the people that are still saying I'm skeptical of therapy.
Yeah.
Right. So they can come and get well. Right. I see it really booming. I think that, you know, in the future, wellness can be a really big thing. Yoga is getting more popular. Meditation, people are getting onto. So I think that when people, you know, are able to see that it's a multifaceted approach, and that it's not just talk therapy, but talking is a component.
Right.
I think that people are going to get on board with it as it gets more popular. I'm glad that I'm in it now, so I can kind of grow with it. Yeah. But I think that integrated health is the way.
Okay, I love it. So with that, I just kind of want to, and I know you're not, and you don't. It's not your style. I don't see it in your tone or anything. But I'm curious, like, who are you helping right now? Who are the people that are your patients? People that are coming to you and they're seeking wellness right now.
So I'll give an age range, because, you know, the clients that have been seeking me out and popping up for health have been older adolescents. So young adults. Okay. I'm talking 19 to 21 range, but, you know, I'm really open. Yeah. I will see kids or adults. Yeah. You know, everybody could use wellness check. You know, anybody could use improvements in their wellness. Yep. So I encourage people of all ages to reach out if they're having, you know, any gaps or any, you know, missing pieces of the whole person, like we talked about. Right. Right. Because I can really help with a range of things. Okay. Yeah, I like that. So anybody, I think you're right. Like anybody can benefit from wellness. So let's play a game. Okay. We're gonna play the lightning round. It's the hands down lightning round. Oh boy. Yeah. We're gonna. I'll give you 3 topics. You tell me your bottom line about these 3 topics. If you don't like the topic, just go ahead and say pass. I'll move on to something else. Okay. Bottom line meaning. Oh, yeah. Your bottom line. Your truth about that topic, right? Great. Yeah. And you know, I don't like opinion. Whatever your truth is, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So, first topic. COVID, Jersey, Governor Murphy, gyms opening back up. Should gyms open back up? And should people be going to the gyms, or should people be doing more things outdoors like hiking, biking, and things like that for their wellness? Mm-hmm. What do you advise? Sure. I think I'm a big proponent of nature for mental health and well-being.
Okay.
So yeah, I would get out there and hike, bike, walk, but also, yeah, I think gyms should open. I think that gyms should open with, safe protocols for cleaning, making sure people are, um, staying, as apart as possible, cleaning the machines thoroughly, cleaning the floors thoroughly. I think that they should open up, and if they need to do a capacity on that, they need to do a capacity on that. But I think people that, for whatever reason, aren't able to, work out outside or whatever the case, or they need weights for
Right.
their health and they don't have access at home, perhaps, I think that we need to start opening up.
Okay, got it. So a little bit of both, it sounds like, right?
A little bit of both, a little bit of balance.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm with
Open
that.
up, safety.
I co-sign that.
Yeah.
Let's see, another one. So since you're so health conscious and you're, looking at that wellness from that perspective, meat or plant-based
Mm.
for a diet, what do you suggest?
I think that, again, it's going to be a balanced answer. It's hard to say one or the other. I don't personally eat meat. I do eat fish. I think that there's a lot of controversy, about the meat industry, and just the way that meat is kind of comes to be, as far as kind of health and protocols with that. So
Right.
plant-based, probably I would lean more towards, but meat is okay too. The lean meats are good for you.
Yep.
Would I say eat red meat every night? Probably not.
Probably not. Right. It takes like 3 days to digest. So bad idea. Right.
Yeah, I think so. I think, the sausage and the red meat you could limit.
Yeah. Okay. And as a psychologist, right? A licensed psychologist, PsyD, um, DSM or no DSM?
So I don't use the DSM for wellness. I just see every patient or every client as just a divine being with an experience. So you're
Okay.
just a person with experiences. We don't need to label you as generalized anxiety disorder or major depressive disorder. If you tell me that you're experiencing anxiety and depression, I'm going to maybe incorporate, strategies that would be good for you. Like if it's anxiety, we'll do guided visualizations together and meditate. But, for my private practice on that end, um, as I'm working for a psychologist, I'm obtaining the rest of my hours, to be able to do that privately.
Right.
Yeah, we have to use DSM.
Yeah. So it's different. Those are two different worlds. I just want to make that clear. Those are two different worlds, right?
Thank you for clarifying that, because I don't think people notice that, or maybe they just don't understand that psychology and wellness are two distinct worlds, and that I'm kind of doing both and kind of hoping to merge at some point in my future.
Yeah. Love that. You're what they call an innovator, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people work towards that, but it's so hard to do. I think of Jordan Peterson, who's a clinical psychologist, but he's such a he's a clinical psychologist, but he's such a philosopher. And he's a
Yes.
big, I like his stuff. I read a lot of his stuff. Right now I'm reading his book, 12 Rules of Life. And this
Nice.
guy is a
I'll have
wealth
to
of
check that out.
knowledge.
12 Rules of Life?
Yeah, yeah. And his he's a philosopher. He studied Carl Jung, right? So he's like a Jungian.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like it's so far out of the realm of the DSM, but then at
Yes.
some
It's
point,
a humanistic approach, right? I mean,
yes.
that's how I function as well, and I look up to that particular psychologist. Just
Do you?
meeting
Okay.
a client as a person and where they're at, and taking your approach, what you want out of life, what do
Right.
you value. We work from there. It's not my agenda onto you.
Yeah, yeah. It's similar to what I do with the coaching. Same thing.
Yeah.
I help people realize their dreams, their visions based
Yes.
on what they want, not
Yes.
my agenda. Yeah.
That's great.
Um, yeah,
Perfect. We're
yeah,
very in alignment then.
yeah. I love it. Good synergy, right?
Very good.
Yeah. Let's get to your bottom line, Alexia. What is your bottom line? Your reoccurring truth. That thing that no matter what, things get hard, any setback you're faced with, you go back to this truth and it propels you forward. What is your bottom line?
I always talk about leading with my heart. And a friend and I have also talked about a certain saying, let your soul and spirit shine. So I would say leading with your heart, let your soul and spirit shine through everything you do.
Nice. Love that. That's simple, but so hard to do.
Lead with your heart. Go with your heart.
Yeah.
Let your heart lead.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Any last words for the people?
Just keep a smile on your face through it all. Things are going to get better.
Okay. And where do people find you, Alexia?
Yeah, you could find me on Instagram at soulcenternj. Okay. My website, www.soulcenternj.com.
Okay, nice. So, Alexia, I know you're busy. This was a lot of fun. I got a lot of value from it. I'm going to work on my stress eating.
Okay, great.
Try to make it to the gym more, right? We all have our faults and our shortcomings. That's one of mine.
Oh, yeah. We're all flawed and we do the best we can. And, just you saying that you want to work towards reducing it, that's a huge step.
Yeah, definitely. This was fun. I hope we can do more, educate people. Check out Alexia at soulcenternj.com. She's on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, right? Wholeness approach to your mental health, your gut, and so on. I mean, here she is, right? She's real. She's doing it, and she's crushing it out there, right?
Thank you.
Definitely. This was the Bottom Line Podcast, where we say what we mean, and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line.